So Stevie, welcome to Markneukirchen.
Oh yeah.
Listen, we do have some common, what you call it, history. Almost we came on a particular scene, sort of at a similar time in New York.
I should say I was lucky enough to crash into your hipster scene in New York City, where I was a kid, and it was like you guys. It was a brutal scene for anybody who wasn't a part of it, because you guys were like the kind of guys in New York City that would like. If that guy wasn't like somebody you would think is worthy of a word out of your mouth, there would be no word spoken. It was like I would watch people get like, I mean, like, you know, Bill, you and Bill Laswell and that whole scene. Bill, I can't believe how long Bill put up with me because I was so young and I was so full of my craziness and yelling. I was like yell at Bill Laswell, right? I was like, I don't know. And yeah, that scene. So yes, I was lucky enough to be a part of your, you know, the New York super elite of. Musician.
Well, we had a little thing going on there, but you came into there, and then also you were like involved in this whole thing with the Funkadelics, with Bootsy, with George.
Yeah.
And you did these crazy records with what's his name, the drummer.
Ronald Shannon Jackson.
Shannon Jackson.
Well, you know, I wouldn't have met you really if it wasn't for George Clinton and Bootsy Collins in a roundabout way, because of Bootsy Collins, me doing Bootsy's album at a really young age. That's why Bill Laswell produced my first solo album, Color Code, and I got to meet you because of Bill Laswell, right? We're and then working in your studio, and you're in Bill's studio quite a bit.
And then of course you did the Mick Jagger thing, and you know it's just interesting for me because at that point in time, if you would. Actually, that goes for both of us. If we would have been around, like say 5 or 10 years earlier, we would have been formatted into much more of a single direction in music. We would have been. You would probably be in a much more straight rock and roll guy and just do that, and I would have been in some kind of fusion field. I would have, you know, Mahavishnu Return to Forever. I would have been that, and that would have been it. But what happened, which I find very interesting, in just that epoch of time. Is the whole idea of the 60s and 70s where everybody was into all kinds of music actually really happened from the player's point of view. If you go back like to the turn of between 60s and 70s, the audience was into all kinds of music at the same time. But the musicians were kind of stuck in their own separate genres. You didn't have much crossover between, like a player could play all this different kind of music. But at our point in time when we got on the scene, so to speak, we actually were involved in all this diverse form of music, which in a certain way has ended, and now again it's back to like if you see people coming up today, they're really just playing one type of music.
You know what's going on though is that the kids now, like I'm getting Facebook messages now from 17-year-old kids, and I get a lot of them, and I'll post every once in a while one. Like I just posted one from a kid from Greece and another kid from North Carolina, and they're like, I'm 17 and I just discovered your first album and now I bought all your albums on eBay. And I'm like, wow, so you think to yourself, those albums are 20 years old now, 23 years old, 22, the first one, you know, Back from the Living's 20. And those songs are still, they were current when they came out, but like only the press and like, musician people, it seemed like really got like, wow, this is some creative stuff, but it kind of went over like normal people's head because like you said, it didn't really sound like, wasn't like straight rock, and it certainly wasn't, for me, maybe fusion enough. Maybe it was, I don't know. Maybe because I didn't understand fusion. When I did Ronald Shannon Jackson, I didn't even know what the hell I was doing. I mean, I had no idea. And to tell you the truth, after I did the record, there was a time in there when Ronald and Bill and everybody was in the studio in New York, and I go, what do I do? And then they're like, just do what you feel, man, or something like that. So I'm like, oh, fuck me. This is fucking bullshit. And so I'm playing, right? And I'm lost completely, right? Jason Casaro's got the board. And it's just, you know, like Ronald Shannon Jackson, like, It's pure cacophony, just madness, right? And I never took a lesson, so I'm pretty much lost. I can figure out where the tonalities are in the root, but almost with this music, some of the odd mistakes I'm making actually sound like they're dope, right? It sounds like this guy's really outside, when really I'm lost, right? Completely lost. I got so lost at one point that I took the guitar and I started smashing it against the SSL there, and I started taking the strings, and they were going through a Marshall or something. It's like, and I'm hitting it, and I'm like, fuck me, I'm fucking lost, fuck. And I turn around, and Laswell and Shannon Jackson are both just like, oh. So I'm like, oh, fuck, and I keep going, right? Yeah. I was completely lost. So then I leave the studio. Laswell was so excited. I think it was the first time, maybe the only time in his life he was ever proud of me, right? You know, he actually said, wow, you know, very seldom when you get a compliment at Laswell. So I go, and he invites me to dinner at their little private space, you know, that I would never get invited before. But like, I get to go sit with him and Herbie Hancock and all these people, right? Drinking. And I'm thinking to myself, these fucking guys are all full of shit. Because I just this is all bullshit. This is all bullshit. Because what I just did there was complete bullshit. So then the record comes out, I don't know, a few months later, and Billboard, the back of Billboard magazine, gives it a rating, and it says, it is by far the finest work Stevie Salas has ever done in his life. And then I say to myself, maybe it's not bullshit. Maybe I don't get it. It's so over my head that I don't even know. Maybe I'm channeling something, and I'm just too stupid to get it. And I better just shut my mouth and be glad I did this, and because I don't get it, but obviously other people are getting it that I respect, and now it really dawned on me that I'm an idiot. You know what I mean? That I need to open my mind even more, perhaps. I really thought I knew.
Well, it is absolutely not about being or not being an idiot. It is a human shortcoming. We are not able to see ourselves as we are. You know, I can see qualities in you that you can't see, and vice versa. You can see qualities in me, and definitely we're talking about music, about the playing. You know, I see
qualities also in the way that you always see was to you always have a beautiful girlfriend.
Wow, but that's thank you. No, but the thing is that I'm so preoccupied with where I think that I want to be with my musical identity and where I want to go and what I want to be. So those are the goals I'm trying to get to, that I get blocked out with stuff that I'm actually really good at. And I guess typically what Bill would get out of you at that very session was pure emotion.
Maybe so.
And the pure emotion might have been frustration. Fuck, I don't know what I'm doing. But you were doing it. It wasn't like you didn't react by giving up, telling him like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. I can't do this. I'm sorry, man.
I know what you mean.
You just went for you.
I didn't give it my approach of trying to be a jazz guy either. Like, let's play some weird notes to be weird.
You got frustrated and angry, and it was pure and it was real. Yeah. And you caught a real moment of emotion in music, and that got on the record. And of course, that shit is powerful.
Yeah.
As it is. You don't.
I guess.
Right.
It was over my head. It was over my head. But it happens. You're right. It happens to everybody.
I disagree with you saying that it was over. It wasn't, because if it was over your head, you couldn't have done it.
Yeah. It was over my head. I was going. You know, you do that thing where you ever do this where I'll listen back. I won't listen to my music ever. After I make a record, I don't usually listen to it because I usually hear it and all I hear is the things I hate about it. Yeah. And then, but nowadays, you know, I'm an old man and these records of mine are just selling as much as they ever have. You know, and it's weird. They're on the internet and I don't do anything to sell them. I don't sell them myself. I don't do any of that stuff. I just let pure organic. And so every once in a while I go back and I listen to a record, and sometimes I'll say to myself like, "Wow, that's pretty cool." I didn't get it till 20 years later, maybe or something. Yeah. It's because I don't know. I think too also when you're a musician or anything and you push yourself. Like you said, you see yourself over here, and you may have already been past that, and you can't see that you're already on the shit you're doing is, you know, you're missing. I'm like that. I get a goal, and then by the time I hit that goal, I'm over it. I'm already somewhere else, and I don't ever stop and bask in that moment. You know, it's been maybe a fault of mine, which made me a miserable person for a lot of years to play with, and you can, you know, I don't know, but you know the thing you were saying about being outside in 1988, 89, and 90, I mean, you know, I did George Clinton, which was outside. That taught me to be outside. And Bootsy Collins. And then through Bootsy, I met Don Was and ended up producing a track with Don and did that What Up Dog album. And before we knew it, we had this weird Walk the Dinosaur song, which is #1 all over the world, which is a weird thing. And then when I scored Bill and Ted, that wasn't so weird, but they want, you didn't hear weird guitar like that in a movie soundtrack ever. I did all the crazy guitar in the soundtrack and in my hands at the end, That was something you never saw in the movies yet, really. So...
Well, but what I really wanted to... That setup was actually leading to a question. Because I know you've done a lot of different projects and even television with music for movies, all kinds of stuff. But if you get down to just basically the music of Stevie Salas, who are you?
Well,
player and musician. What is?
Let me tell you what my theory was.
What are you about?
My theory was this. I came to LA in 1985. I got out of high school in San Diego, and I came up there, and I knew. I was honest enough with myself to say I'm never going to be as good as Eddie Van Halen. Because, when that first Van Halen came out, there was nothing like it. And it's like, how do you touch that? I was never going to be as good as Jimi Hendrix, let's say. Okay, so how am I going to be a guitar player who finds a way to be special? And I grew up in San Diego surfing and hanging out in the town by the Marine base, and I had black friends and white friends and purple friends and green friends. You know what I mean? I surfed, but I played high school. I played football and I played baseball, and I had so I was an athlete, and I was exposed to a lot of I was equally rocking out to Jungle Boogie, as much as I was rocking out to The Rover by Led Zeppelin. And it was all, to me, there was not like this was this and this was, to me it was all, this was just all great shit. And there was some crappy kind of music in all these genres. So I wasn't a genre guy. So I said to myself in LA one day, I said, I have got to find a way. My thing, after being with George Clinton, I really understood, because George wouldn't let me play funk really on his records. People think, oh, he's the funkiest. But I didn't get to play funk on George Clinton. He wanted me to rock. That's what he wanted. And he had a million guys that could play funk. Like those guys do it like on a whole nother level, man. Yeah. So I realized that then. I said to myself, I remember this moment. I can see myself right now. I was sitting in my car outside Baby O Sounds off Sunset Boulevard, and it hit me like, what I have got to do is I've got to find a way to play funk guitar with a hard rock sound. That was going to be my thing. There was no Rage Against the Machine. As a matter of fact, Tom Morello and I had these bands. There were sort of competing bands in L.A. A couple of years after that. He had a band called Lock Up, and I had Color Code. We both got signed, and Color Code actually did better. Then later on, he went to do Rage Against the Machine, and he just, owned it, right? So there wasn't too much of that. Chili Peppers were doing it kind of, but they were more punk rock, kind of funk, and they didn't have skills so much, but it was still cool, and they were going for it, and Hell was really cool at rocking with the funk. And so I knew that this was something I could do that would make me different. The problem is it made it to where I couldn't be universally successful in America because it didn't sound like Bon Jovi, and it didn't sound like Motley Crue, and it didn't sound like whatever else was on the radio in 1989 and 90 and 91, at all. But what it did do was it gave me a foundation of something that was more timeless. So that record was still cool. I didn't do one of those kind of records like one of them rock guys who made the horrible rock record, and then every music changed and you're embarrassed to be that guy. I didn't do that, and I think that's a big thanks to guys like you and Bill Laswell, those guys that were around me that had a corny alert that didn't let me do something corny that would destroy my life 10 years later. Right. And that's a lucky thing to have, right? Thank God. Because believe me, I had a couple songs, if they would have came out, it was like, I listened to them, they're like, oh! I remember Laswell, because Laswell would never say like, no, that song sucks, this was better. He'd just go like, look away, or walk out of the room or something. Or he wouldn't tell me he didn't like one of my lyrics. He would just repeat it back to me and like, look away. Like that was him. Oh, he must not like that. You know what I mean? Which just sucks, for a young guy. I was a kid, right? I would have liked for him to sit down and go, don't say that, and this is why. And he did that a couple of times. He would give me books, or he'd give me something like, check this out, His way of getting you to get it. But the thing is, it's not easy to get it when you're 22 years old and he's Bill Laswell. And
right, but also if somebody comes up to you, even if he is Bill Laswell, and starts telling you this is how it is and that's how it isn't, you're going to revolt against it, but the way he's doing it is, you got it, right?
I didn't get it all times. I still hear a few things that I think he wanted me to change that I wish I would have changed, like especially on the Hardware album with me and Buddy Miles and Bootsy Collins. And that was a bit of a struggle. But again, I'm in a band with Buddy Miles and Bootsy Collins. What the hell am I doing? You know what I mean? It's like... So the whole thing was a bit overwhelming. I couldn't quite understand. In my mind, I heard this record here and sounding a different way. In Bill's mind, it was something different. And again, people write me and say it's the best record, and I still have a hard time listening to it.
It's a great record.
Yeah,
it definitely is.
But I have a weird hard time listening. I don't know, you know what I mean? Like I said, but I know it was the right thing to do at the right time. Obviously it was, because I am 20 years later, I've never had huge hit records. I've had some, big success in certain times where I've, popped 1 million records or something, but I've never really had that thing to still be around 20 years later and have anybody give a shit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's that foundation. So obviously,
But at this moment in time, we're talking about the past now a lot. This moment in time, where are you musically? What is your in your head? Not actually what projects are you doing, just mindset. Where is your musical mind at? What is it that you want to do musically?
Musically, I a couple of years ago, I had a recording contract right up to like 2 years ago, since 1989, like a long time. It finally ran out. Well, all of a sudden, I didn't, for the first time in my life, have a budget. And then I was kind of like, why do I want to even make another record? You know what I mean? It's like it's impossible to sell now. People want them, but it's like, you know what I mean? It's kind of like heartbreaking. You put your record out, and I sold 12,000 units or something. It's like, and you look on Billboard, 19,000 units, and you're number 3. I don't know. It's just, so up until just recently, even probably why I'm here, because I reached out to you guys because I said, you know what? I was at the party here. I came to your big anniversary party here in Germany, and I thought, you know what? These guys still got a hard on for music, and I need to get stoked about music again, playing. So I started thinking. I was watching Leland Sklar play the bass line to the Billy Cobham Spectrum song. Do 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 do, and I was like, you know what? I started thinking about Tommy Bolin, who played on that, and I started thinking about. He wasn't a fusion guy, and I thought, I need to make some kind of a fusion. I've been talking to you on and off a little bit, but I'm insecure because I don't want to make one and have people, say, like, this is shit. So then I think, okay, but then he just made one, and he's a pentatonic, you know what I mean? Because then, you watch, like, with the band, the band you were in with, what's his name?
Matthias.
No, your old band. With
Johnny Mac? Mahavishnu?
Yeah. Come on, you know what I mean? It's like, so... But I'm kind of stoked to try to explore into some of that,
right.
And I'm also still. I started writing again, and because people are calling me, want to release my records, some that haven't been released. Like EMI is going to release something now in Canada, and I think, okay. I played a concert with a trio. I've been still going out and doing festivals, and I played with my trio for the first time in a long time. The other day in Canada, I did a big show, and not a big show, but a cool show, and it was kind of exciting again. So musically, right now, I'm into my thing, which is still my thing. Is I always try to look at myself like. If I took Jimi Hendrix and James Brown and they had a baby, it would be me. That's my thing. That's been my thing, right? Okay, I don't want to be too Hendrix. I want to be too Catfish Collins. Yeah. But I want to explore into that because I love that. Because, when I sit down and I listen to, like, the JBs, I love that. If I could, in a perfect world, have a great band that could play just music by the JBs and... Like, I'd go on tour if James Brown was alive, and I could play in a real stripped-down version of the band. Not that giant thing he had before he died, but I would love that with a horn section. If I could tour with a horn section again and afford it, I would do that in a minute. Get back to some of that funk and play those festivals where you have 30,000 kids dancing. But I'm exploring those possibilities right now.
Another track here. You're involved with the Smithsonian, with the Native American culture, and you're talking about your music is now all these different like black music, this music, that music, and it's for me as a Scandinavian, where race does not even matter that much, even positive, negative, whatever. But still today, if you go to the States, for me, I'm still shocked about the importance that is still paid to that whole thing about race. What's your take on that?
It's funny you said that because half an hour ago I was up in the gym here at Warwick working out with Hans Peter, and we were watching CNN, and there's a whole big special they dedicated coming on about being black in America, and now black people are saying, I'm the wrong color black, and the lighter black people are racist against. It's like, and I said to Hans Peter, I go, can you believe that someone's even talking about this right now? This is crazy. And so I don't know if it's made press. There's a lot of news channels. They need something to talk about. 1, 2. I think a lot of people of all races, white, black, whatever, Indians, Native Americans, all of us, certain people need to find something to bitch about and complain about. And I'm sure shit happens, and I see it happen in Indian country a lot. So I know it happens. But it's sort of like, I remember I interviewed Robbie Robertson. I'm coming out in this film about Native American musicians and the history of pop music. And Robbie Robertson, we were talking, and Robbie Robertson said it was like that when he was coming up. But he said, he goes, it was there, but I couldn't hear it. I just couldn't hear it. Meaning he refused to even acknowledge it, therefore it didn't exist. And he went on to be hugely successful. And in my case, in study in L.A., because in my biography piece that they did up there, Matt Sorum and some of these rock stars were talking about how me and Slash and maybe even Hendrix had this thing where you just couldn't come up and be in the band because you kind of look different. You know, you look rock, but you're not the prototypical rock guy that would be in the white rock and roll band that we're going to sign to be in the band. And I think I was, in the words of Slim Jim Phantom, too stupid to know better. So my being naive made it to where I had no reason to believe. I mean, when I walked in an audition for Rod Stewart, I had no reason to believe that I shouldn't be his guitar player. Right. Or George Clinton, for that matter. And being naive, perhaps, saved that situation. So you got to deal with race is like dealing also with rejection. I find in Indian country where I'm from, a lot of the guys say to me, I didn't make it because these guys don't let Indians do this. And I'm like, one guy said to me, this group of 4 guys said to me once in Winnipeg, they said, we want to do what you do, Stevie, but they won't let us. And I just said, well, who are they? Because whoever they are, I said that whoever they are, they let me. That's what I said, they let me. So who are these guys?
Exactly.
You know, and
very interesting, actually, when you talk about this whole, I mean, there's been this talk about black people in rock music for decades.
Yeah. But Black Rock Coalition to me is stupid. No offense. No offense to anybody, but automatically you're putting your race in a box.
Right. But if you go back to the original black modern rock star, which is Jimmy, there was no even whoever questioned his right to be where he was. Yeah. He was just like a huge celebrated star. Yeah. Or you take an epoch earlier. You take what's his face, Little Richard. He was as much rock and roll at that time as Jerry Lee Lewis.
He's the king.
He's the king, yeah.
He was the king. I mean, those guys had to deal maybe with some things like maybe they got a penny for their album where Elvis got $1, shit like that, where that was real. And with Jimi Hendrix's thing, it's funny because Jimmy's also in this movie that I'm in, this doc being made, and Jimmy's sister Janie talked about Jimmy's grandmother was a Cherokee Indian, and at the Smithsonian, the first thing she did was she sent over a copy of the birth certificates for her grandmother and her grandmother's mother, and we were like, wow. And she said to me, it's really important to us that we celebrate Jimmy's Native American heritage in his life. And she said he was needed in the time that he was alive. He was needed by the black people. They needed him. She said this, and it's in the movie. She says, if you look at Jimmy's skin, he was very light skin, almost the same color skin as me or something, right? She goes, but if you look at posters, you'll often find that he was blackened in. He was made to be black because the black movement needed him. He was something that they were getting. They were going through some bad shit, and he was a shining point for them. And you understand for that what was going on to those people in the South, So he had to have some pressure on him with the race thing. In Sweden, you're right. I mean, you guys are like,
we don't care.
You don't care about, you guys aren't judgmental. Oh, you guys don't care if you're married, you can have babies, whatever. You guys don't judge anybody. You don't have this religious crap that we have to deal with in America.
Exactly, and we have Swedes that are pitch black, and they're still just Swedes. Yes. I mean, nobody even questions them. Exactly. Like you have this guy, for instance, you had this guy from my hometown, actually, football player, soccer for Americans, but football player, Martin Dahlin. Swedish name. He's as Swedish as I am. Yeah. He just happens to be a different color, but nobody even pays attention to that. Right, he's just like...
You guys are way ahead, though. I remember being on tour there in 1990, my first world tour, Color Code, and sitting in my tour bus, and my bus driver went in to the bank or something. He left the engine running. And some people, citizens walking down the sidewalk, bam, 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 on the side of the thing. We're like, what? Turn off the engine. No idling. You're polluting the streets. You know what I mean? It was like, you guys are way ahead of the game. But you know, this race stuff is like to the point now where you're right. It's 2013. It's still there. People are talking about it, and it needs just you know, you have to ignore. First of all, it didn't mean to slam the Black Rock Coalition so much, but if it was the White Rock Coalition, they can't have a White Rock Coalition.
That would be dangerous.
You know what I mean? So why should you be able to have a Black Rock Coalition or an Indian Rock Coalition? Otherwise, you're doing the same thing that people did against you that you're fighting against, right? The whole thing is just, it should just be how badass are you?
Yeah.
And you know what? At the end of the day, if you're really badass, sooner or later, you hope, almost 8 out of 10 cases, let's say, someone's going to figure it out.
Yeah.
You just got to stay, and you got to keep going.
You just got to stop talking about that issue and overcome it, and it should just be about human endeavor and musical endeavor and life itself. And just like move past it. You know, you take. I'm so happy that in the White House now you have an eloquent president, a president with a brain, somebody who actually knows the issues and can speak properly, who can speak proper English. Before you had another guy who you know, and forget about what race he is or not. This guy is good. Let
me tell you something about Obama though. I don't believe in any politician anymore. I think the whole system's corrupt by a corporation. But Obama, what made me like him, and I don't care if he did a good job in the first term or not. What I like about him is he refuses to be an imbecile child and argue like a child when he's supposed to be a statesman. These politicians now that are fighting and arguing about things when people are starving and people's mortgages are upside down and they refuse to be able to pass a bill what's best for these people because they're worried about what, you know, their political bipartisan whatever. I'm so sick of it. So just the fact that Obama, when they were slamming him, he didn't say, like, well, let me tell you about that idiot. He just said, let's keep on talking about what's important. And just the fact that he was an adult made me want to vote for him, you know what I mean? Whether he did a shitty job or not. I agree. Because I'm so sick of seeing these grown men act like babies. And everybody else, you know, and they're all getting rich while everybody else is just dying on the vine, right? So.
On that note, it's really cool to have you in Germany for a second.
Oh, yeah. Hopefully I'm going to be around a little more. I never thought I'd say that about wanting to come back to Markneukirchen, but I actually, it's not quite the same without seeing you drive around these one-lane streets in your Rolls Royce.
Well, we'll get back to that.
All right.
All right.